equal to 0, j less than 5, you have to run how many times? The hello I am in main thread, 5 times it has to be run. That has to be called in the main thread. If thread join TCB and null, then printf error in the thread join return -1. You have to go back once again to the main program and run it once again. See, this thread has been created, but while running the main thread, you have to call or you have to join to this hello I am in main thread you have to join. If it is not possible to join, you have to call the error in the thread. Okay, thread join. And the termination of the thread can happen in different ways. One is natural termination, one is forced termination. In natural termination, the thread completes its execution and returns to the main thread through simple return or by executing the pthread exit. Normally it will come out of that thread by completion of return call, or else you can go for the pthread exit. And if you are going for a forced termination, this can be achieved by the call, that is pthread cancel, or through the termination of the main thread with exit or execute function. Okay, and you can call it as exec function, or else pthread cancel function. Pthread cancel calls call is used by the thread to terminate another thread. One thread can cancel the another thread functioning, but at that time you will be calling the thread cancel function. Okay. Next, thread preemption. Thread preemption is an act of preempting the currently running thread. It means stopping the currently running thread temporarily. See, one thread is running now. At that time, highest priority thread has come, or highest priority interrupt has interrupting the main thread function or main thread execution. At that time, you have to stop the thread execution. After that, you have to that thread has to go back to the stack and store its data, and you are running the new thread or new interrupt. Okay, that is called as preemption, means exiting from the running state to the ready state. Okay, thread preemption is performed by for sharing the CPU time among the all the threads. If all the threads are sharing the CPU time, then always you need to preempt the each and every threads. The execution switching among thread is known as thread context switching. Switching from one thread to another thread is called as thread context switching. Thread context switching is dependent on the operating system scheduler and type of the thread. What type of thread we are running, and how the operating system is scheduling the all the threads, that you can see related to thread preemption part. Types of threads: user level threads, and you will be having kernel level threads. Many one yeah, these two types of threads are there. In user level threads do not have a kernel or operating system support, and they exist solely in the running process. Here in user level threads, you don't have any kernel or any operating system which supports them to execute, or which schedule the each and every task to execute. No, you won't be having any operating system here to support the threads execution. Even if a process contains multiple user level threads, the operating system treat it as a single thread and will not switch the execution among the different threads of it. And then it is the responsibility of the process to schedule each thread as and when required. With respect to the process, you will be allotting the threads or scheduling the threads in the format or in the priority levels, how it has to be arranged. In summary, user level threads of the process are non-primitive at thread level from operating system perspective. Related to operating system perspective, user level threads of a process are non-preemptive, and the execution switching, that is thread context switching, happens only when the currently executing user level thread is voluntarily blocked. See here, non-preemptive means If any other external function occurring, external thread occurring, or any priority level thread occurs, or any priority level interrupt occurs, it won't stop its execution because you don't have any scheduler here. After the completion of the thread execution, or else after voluntarily thread has blocked itself, then only you can go for the next thread execution to execute the next thread. Hence, no operating system intervention and system calls are involved in the context switching of user level threads. This makes context switching of the user level threads very fast. Okay. And kernel level threads are individual. Kernel level threads are individual units of execution with the OS threads treats as separate threads. See, individual units of execution are taken as threads, and operating system will treat each and every thread separately. And the OS interrupts the execution of the currently running kernel thread and switches the execution to another kernel thread based on the scheduling policies implemented on the operating system. Here in kernel level threads, each and everything is dependent on the scheduling process which is used, or scheduling process is implemented by the operating system. In user level, you don't have any scheduling methods which are supported by the operating system here. Okay. In kernel, in summary, kernel level threads are primitive, as I told you. Any kernel level threads involve lot of kernel overhead and involves the system calls for the context switching. System will be calling for some interrupts, or system will be calling for the threads to execute. At that time, context switching has to be occurring. At that time, preemption of one thread to another thread will be done. However, kernel threads maintain a clear layer of abstraction and allow threads to use system call independently. Each and every thread will be having the clear layers, and it will be all the threads will be allowed for the use of system calls independently. Then thread binding models, how you are going to bind the each and every threads in the system call or in the kernels. Okay, there are many ways of binding user level threads with the system or kernel level threads. That is many to one model. That is here many user level threads are mapped to a single kernel thread. Means user level threads, many user level threads are there which will be mapped towards the single kernel thread. In this model, the kernel threads all uses user level threads as single thread, and the executing switching among the user level threads happens when the currently executing user level thread voluntarily block itself and relinquishes the CPU. That is, here if we are linking the user levels to the kernel level, the user level threads will be taken as a single thread for the kernel. Okay, kernel will be treating all the user level threads into single thread, and in between whatever the switching occurs, that won't be operated by the kernel. And voluntarily, changing from one thread to another thread in the user level is almost dependent on the users only and threads only. Thread will be voluntarily blocks itself, then only it can go for the another thread, or else it can go back to CPU to run the kernel level thread. Okay, Solaris green threads and GNU portable threads are example for this, and the P thread example is an illustrative example for application with the many to one thread model. And one to one model is here each user level thread is bonded to the kernel level thread. Windows XP, NT 2000 and Linux threads are example for one to one thread model. The modified P thread example is an illustrative example for application with one to one thread model. Many to many model is, in this model many user level threads are allowed to map to many kernel threads. See, if one thread is the user level thread is there, it can be mapped to two or three kernel level threads also. That is taken as many to many threads. thread model. Windows NT and 2000 with the thread fiber package is an example for this. You can see the difference between the process versus thread is a single unit of execution and it is a part of a process. You can please take it into mind that thread and process are different, and thread is a part of process. Okay, process is a program in execution and contains one or more threads. If I am taking whole program for the execution, if I am writing one program for the execution, in that you may have 2 to 3 threads, but whole program will represent the one process. Okay, a thread does not have its own data memory and heap memory. It shares the data memory and heap memory with other threads of the same process. And process has its own code memory, data memory and stack memory, and thread cannot live independently. It lives within the process, and process contains at least one thread, then it is a independent part. And there can be multiple threads in the process. The first thread, the main thread, calls the main function and occupies the start of the stack memory of the process. And threads within a process share the code, data and heap memory, and each thread holds the separate memory area for the stack. Whatever thread we have in main process, if you have n number of threads, n number of memory separation will be done, and each and every thread will be storing their data into that separate memory. And threads are very inexpensive to create, and processes are very expensive to create, involve many operating system overheads. Context switching is implemented in context switching is complex and involves lot of operating system overhead and the comparatively slower. If the thread expires, its stack is reclaimed by the process. If a process dies, the resource allocated to it are reclaimed by the operating system, and all the associated threads of the process also die. If process dies means whatever the threads are present in that process will also die. Okay. And the task scheduling, you can take it as an example where task scheduling means how many number of tasks we have, how many number of threads we have with respect to its policies. If operating system or kernel, if we are taking related to that, you will be having different type of policies related to that policies. How we are going to arrange the number of tasks in for execution, that is called as scheduling. Means table has been created, you can take it as a table is created, which task has to be performed first, which task has to be performed next. In that way you are arranging them, that is called as task scheduling. Okay, multitasking involves the execution switching among the different tasks. As I told you, if more number of tasks are there, you have to switch from one task to another task after the completion or else in between. That's why you need a scheduling. There should be some mechanism in place to share the CPU among the different tasks and to decide which process or task is to be executed at a given point of time, which task has to be executed in a given point of time. That's why you will be providing that mechanism. And determining which task or process is to be executed at a given point of time is known as task process scheduling. Task or process scheduling. Scheduling policies forms the guidelines for determining which task has to be executed. See, if you will be following some policies, then only you can find or guideline the task to schedule properly. The scheduling policies are implemented in algorithm and it is run by the kernel as the service. The kernel service or application which implements the scheduling algorithm is known as a scheduler. Okay, you have a scheduler which will be allotting the task in the form of their execution priorities. Okay, and based on the scheduling algorithm used, scheduling can be classified into non-primitive scheduling. The currently executing task or process is allowed to run until it terminates or enters the wait state, waiting for an input output system resource. And preemptive scheduling, that is the currently executing task or process is preempted, stopped temporarily, and another task from the ready queue is selected for the execution. That is preemptive scheduling. You can take it as non-preemptive or preemptive. See, in non-preemptive, you won't stop the execution of any task. Simply, it will run till the end of the task. Preemptive is you will be stopping the execution of that in between the execution of thread. Okay. Task in task scheduling, the process scheduling decision may take place when the process switches its state. When the process is switching from one state to another state, then only task scheduling decision will be taken. Ready state or from running state. If you are going to the ready state from running state, that is uh, one state switching, and blocked or wait state from running state, and ready state from block to wait state and completed state. These are the four different states you are transferring or switching from one state to another state. A process switches from ready state of from the running state when it is preempted, means if you are stopping the execution of the main thread or main process, then you will be running at that time. You will be going to running to ready state at that time. If you are stopping the execution of your main thread or main process, then it will go back to ready state. Hence, the type of scheduling in the scenario one is preemptive. When a highest priority process in the blocked or wait state completes its IO and switches to the ready state, and the scheduler picks it for execution if the scheduling policy used is priority based primitive. As I told you, see, some highest priority program is there or process is there, but it is waiting for the input values or input from the keypad or input from the mouse is it is waiting for that input, but at that time it will be in blocked or wait state. As and when it gets the input value which has to be needed for the highest priority process, then it will directly go to the ready state. Okay, but it won't wait in the ready state also, because whenever we are using in the scheduler part, whenever we are using the priority based preemption, then the highest prior, if the whatever the process we have kept in the scheduler part, it is in the ready state and it is having the highest priority, then it will go to the execution state. This is indicated by the scenario 3. Okay, next we have in preemptive or non-preemptive multitasking, the process relinquishes the CPU when it enters the blocked or wait state or the completed state, and switching of the CPU happens at this stage. Scheduling under scenario 2 can be either preemptive or non-preemptive. Scheduling under scenario 4 can be preemptive and non-preemptive or cooperative. All those things we'll see. And in the selection of scheduling criteria, algorithm should consider the following factors, that is CPU utilization, throughput, and turnaround time, and waiting time, and response time. These all should be considered. Please listen to it properly, that because you will be having some of the problems related to these values, that's why. And you can see here CPU utilization is the scheduling algorithm should always make the CPU utilization high, and CPU utilization is a direct measure of how much percentage of CPU is being utilized. And throughput is this gives an indication of a number of process executed per unit of time. Throughput within this much amount of time, how much throughput or how much output we have got in the process. The throughput for a good scheduler should always be higher. Turnaround time is, it is the amount of time taken by the process for completion of its execution, overall execution of the process, and it indicates the time spent by the process for waiting for a main memory, and time spent for the ready queue, time spent on the completion of the IO operations, and time spent for execution. All those things if you are adding, you will get the turnaround time. The turnaround time should be minimal for the good scheduling algorithm. Whatever the waiting time should be less, and waiting for the main memory is also should be less, and time spent in the ready queue is should be also less. Then only you will get the minimal scheduling time. And waiting time is, it is the amount of time spent by the process in the ready queue waiting to get the CPU time for execution. The waiting time should be minimal for the good scheduling algorithm. Response time, it is the time elapsed between the submission of the process and the first response. For a good scheduling algorithm, the response time should be as least as possible. To summarize, a good scheduling algorithm has high CPU utilization, minimum turnaround time, and maximum throughput, and least response time should be given. And the various queues maintained by the operating system is in association with the CPU scheduling is job queue, ready queue, device queue are the three queues. In job queue contains all the processes in the system. What all the processes we have in the system, all will be there in your job queue. In ready queue contains all the processes which are ready for the execution and waiting for the CPU to get their turn for execution. Some of the programs are has to execute now, but they are waiting for the CPU time to run the program or run the process. The ready queue is empty when there is no process ready for running. And device queue is contains the set of processes and which are waiting for the IO devices. If we are waiting for the input output devices should be connected, or input output data should be given to the process, then it will be in the device queue. And preemptive scheduling is, in preemptive scheduling, the scheduler can preempt or stop temporarily the currently executing task or process select another task for the ready queue from the ready queue for execution. The every task in a ready queue gets a chance to execute always, and when the preempt a task and which task is to be picked up from the ready queue for execution after preempting the current task is purely dependent on the scheduling algorithm. Which task has to be stop its execution, which task has to be run now, and which task has to be stopped at that time. Everything will be dependent on the scheduling algorithm used by the operating system. Okay, a task which is preempted by the scheduler is moved to the ready queue. Whatever the task was running previously, that will be stopped now because of the preemption. Then that task will be going to ready state. And the act of moving a running process or task into the ready queue by the scheduler without the process requesting for it, known as the preemption process. Preemptive scheduling can be implemented in two different ways, that is time based and priority based preemption. In time based, always you will be allotting the time for each and every process or task. After the completion of that amount of time, it should come out of that execution running state to ready state, and then you have to allot the next task to run. And after completion of that, whatever the time we have allotted for the second task, that will be completed. After that, you have to come back to come out of that running state to ready state, and next task will be running. In that way, you are allotting the time for each and every task. Priority based means with respect to what is the amount, what is the priority we have for the program or task. With respect to that, you will be allotting the or scheduling the tasks in the priority levels. If you have a highest priority, then it will be running in the first. If you have a least priority, it will be running in the last. The various types of preemptive scheduling adopted in task or process scheduling is preemptive shortest job first or shortest remaining time scheduled. Next is round robin scheduling, and third one is priority based scheduling. Shortest job first is whichever is having the shortest amount of time to execute, that will be executed first. whichever is having the larger amount of time for the execution, that will be executed in last. That is one type of scheduling. Round robin is each and every task is provided with the exact time or same time for execution. If it is not completing its execution in within that amount of time, then it has to preempt it and give the time for the next task to run. And next is priority based, as we discussed with the same, the priority based, highest priority program will be running first in that way. And preemptive, that is shorter job first or shortest remaining time scheduling. That is in shortest job first, the process with the shortest estimated runtime is scheduled first, followed by the next shortest process, so on. The preemptive SJF scheduling algorithm shorts the ready queue when the new process enters the ready queue and checks whether the execution time of the new process is shorter than the remaining of the total estimated time of the currently executing process. If the execution time of the new process is less, the currently executing process is preempted and the new process is scheduled for the execution. See, I have first executed for 1 second, one process has been executed. Next, I have slotted for 3 second process. But newly one more program or one more task got into your operating system, where the whatever the new task has occurred, which is having the 2 seconds of execution. Then you have to stop that whatever the previous program was running, previous task was running, which is having the time for execution is 3 seconds. Then you have to stop that program and start the new program which has been occurred from the at that time. Okay. Thus, preemptive SJF scheduling always compares the execution completion time. It is same as the remaining time for the new process of a new process, time of a new process entered to the ready state. Queue with the remaining time for the completion of the currently executing process and schedules the process with the shorter remaining time for execution always. Primitive SJF scheduling is also known as shortest remaining time scheduling. And see one example we can take three three processes with process IDs P1, P2, P3 with estimated completion time, that is 10, 5, 7 milliseconds respectively, enters the ready queue together. A new process, that is P4, with the estimated time completion time is 2 milliseconds, enters the ready queue after the completion of 2 milliseconds. First, that I'll explain you one by one. Assume all the process contains only CPU operation and no IO operation are involved. Calculate the waiting time and turnaround time for each process and the average waiting time and turnaround time in the SRT scheduling. That is your shortest remaining time scheduling format. In this, only time has to be considered properly. Okay, what is the time for the execution? 10, 5 and 7 millisecond for three processes. Okay, that is P1, P2 and P3. P4 has been occurred while executing your main program, main processes after the completion of 2 millisecond. After the first process is running, after the completion of 2 millisecond, one more process has been this has to be kept in mind. You can see here. Here you can see that process ID P1, P2 and P3. What is the time for execution is 10 millisecond for P1, 5 millisecond for P2 and 7 millisecond for P3. Okay, at the ready queue at the 0 millisecond. Okay, where you have to see which has to be executed first. Okay. P2 is scheduled now because which is having the remain lesser amount of time for execution, that is 5 millisecond. P2 has to be executed first. Okay. P2 will start its execution after the 2 millisecond. After 2 millisecond, what will happen? P4 came into place, came into ready queue. Okay, in ready queue you got the P4, that is 2 millisecond with the execution time. In ready queue, after the 2 millisecond, P2 will be completed its 2 millisecond execution. What is the remaining time? Remaining time is 3 millisecond. That's why now, as the external task as process has been included into ready queue, once again check for the whatever the remaining time we have. That is P2 is having 3 millisecond, P4 is having 2 millisecond. P4 is having the lesser amount of time. That's why preempt the P2 execution, means you have to stop the execution of P2 now and go for P4 scheduling. P4 has to be scheduled for the execution now. Okay. After that, after the completion of 2 more milliseconds, P4 completes its execution. Then go back to next ready state or ready queue, where you have P3, P2 has a 3 millisecond. That's why you have to execute the P2. P2 has to be scheduled for execution. After 3 millisecond, then what will happen? 3 millisecond P2 is completed. Now check for which is having the less amount of time, P1 and P3. In P1 and P3, P3 is having the lesser amount of time for execution. That's why after completion of P2, P3 will start its execution for execution. And next is after completion of P3, you will go for the P1, because P1 is having the highest amount of time to execute. Okay, that's why P3 is completed, P1 will be scheduled. After that, it will be completing its execution. Okay, this is your actual preemptive format scheduling. Here 0 millisecond, after 2 milliseconds this will be there, ready queue will be like this. After 4 milliseconds this will be like this, and after 7 milliseconds it will be like this, and after 14 milliseconds you will be having millisecond, your ready queue will be empty. Total execution time will be how much? 24 milliseconds. You can see here P2 will be scheduled first. After 2 milliseconds, P4 will be executed. After 2 milliseconds, P2 will be once again rescheduled and you will be completing its execution. Then 7 milliseconds, then 10 milliseconds for P1. Totally, how much amount of time we need? 24 milliseconds has to be needed for execution. And you have to find out waiting time and average waiting time and also turnaround time. You can see here the waiting time for all the process has to be found out. Waiting time for P2. At the starting, it doesn't have any waiting time. That's why 0 millisecond plus how much amount of time execution time is there for P2 is, you can see here, yeah, P2 is started execution, its second part of execution started here. Now in P2 starting, waiting time is 0. Okay, and here in between two P2 process scheduling, if any other process is there, then you have to minus this 2. P4 minus, sorry, 4 minus 2, you will get the 2. That is 2 millisecond is the waiting time for P2. That you can see here. That is 4 minus 2 is millisecond, 2 millisecond. And waiting time for P4, as and when it got into your queue, ready queue, it starts its execution. That's why you don't have any waiting time for that. Waiting time for P3 is P3 when it has been started. See, P3 has started here. After the completion of 7 milliseconds, it has started its execution. That's why 7 millisecond is its waiting time. Waiting time for P4 is, P1 is 14 milliseconds. After the completion of 14 milliseconds, P1 will be starting its execution. Okay, average waiting time is waiting time for all the process divided by number of processes. How many number of process we have? 4 processes are there, and waiting time for all the process has to be written. 2 plus 0 plus 7 plus 14, 23 by 4, totally 5.75 milliseconds is the waiting time for the execution of 4 processes. Okay. Next we have turnaround time. time spent in the ready queue plus execution time will be taken as a turnaround time. For each and every process we have to take. Turnaround time for P2 is 2 millisecond plus 5 milliseconds is equal to 7 millisecond. That is, your time spent in the ready queue is how much? 2 millisecond. That you can take it as an waiting time only. Okay. Time spent in ready queue can be taken as waiting time. Waiting time plus execution time will give you turnaround time. Waiting time is 2 millisecond as we have seen here, and execution time we know here it is there. Execution time is 10, 5 and 7. Okay, that one we have seen here. Here, yeah, 2 plus 5 is 7, and for P4 the time spent in ready queue is 0 and execution time is 2 millisecond, totally 2 millisecond. And for P3, 7 millisecond is a waiting time, 7 milliseconds is execution time, totally 14 milliseconds. And for P1, 14 milliseconds is the waiting time and 10 milliseconds is for execution time, totally 24 milliseconds is turnaround time. And average turnaround time, you can take it all the values, add it and divide by number of process. 7 plus 2 plus 14 plus 24 divided by 4, 47 by 4, totally 11.75 is a millisecond is a average turnaround time. Next we have round robin scheduling. In round robin scheduling, each process in the ready queue is executed for the predefined time slot. Means predefined time slot is given for each and every task. Millisecond is given for any of the tasks. It has to run for the 5 millisecond. Then you will be if it is good. If it is not completed, you will be giving the time for next process to execute. In that way, you will be going to schedule the round robin scheduling format. The execution starts with picking up the first process in the ready queue, and it is executed for a predefined time, and when the predefined time elapses or the process completes before the predefined time slash, the next process is in the ready queue will be starting its execution. This is repeated for all the processes in the ready queue. Once each process in the ready queue is executed for the predefined time period, the scheduler comes back and picks the first process in the ready queue again for the execution. After the completion of whole predefined, all the process will get the actual time for the execution, then once again it will go back to the first process in the ready queue. Okay, the sequence is repeated continuously till all the processes are completing its execution. Ready queue can be considered as a circular queue in which the scheduler picks up the first process for the execution and moves to the next till the end of the queue, and then comes back to the beginning of the queue and picks the first process. As you can see, first process is executed. After completion of 5 milliseconds, it will go to process 2. After completion of 5, go to 3. 5 milliseconds, go to 4. After completion of 5 milliseconds, go to process 1. In this way, it will continue till the completion of all the process execution. Okay. The time slice is provided by the time tick feature of the time management unit of the operating system. Time slice is kernel dependent and it varies in order to few microseconds to millisecond. Round robin scheduling ensures that every process gets the fixed amount of CPU time for execution. When the process gets its fixed time of execution, it is determined by the first come first serve. See, whatever the process we have allotting, in that way only first come first serve will be done in round robin process. And if the process terminates before the elapse the time slice, the process release the CPU voluntarily, and then next process in the queue is scheduled for the execution by scheduler.